Hi everybody, it is a beautiful day in Green Bank, West Virginia, and we are here filming the sizzle reel for Big Science. And part of the Kickstarter rewards was that some people got to ask questions about the area and about the project. And our first question is from Margie, who wanted to know, what is the most surprising behind-the-scenes factoid about Green Bank? And for me, I think the most surprising aspect is how highly skilled the folks at Green Bank actually are. You might think, sure, the scientists are skilled, but what about the welders or the technicians? These are local folk from West Virginia who were trained here. This is where they grew up, and yet they are incredibly skilled. To give you an example, there is a radio facility in Chile called ALMA, and it is a $3 billion facility that's coordinated by an international team of experts. And the people doing the work at ALMA are drawn from expertise all over the world. And most of the stuff that they do for all the technical and maintenance of ALMA is actually done locally in Chile by their expert team. But there are some things that are problematic in a way that are so subtle or complex that they can't handle it, and so they ship it to Green Bank. It's kind of hard to imagine what they're doing. The ALMA is way out in the middle of the Chilean desert, and they pack this stuff up, they fly it to the United States, they pass it through customs, they drive it all the way out to Green Bank. Just to get it here is a huge task, and they do it because the folks at Green Bank are the only people in the world who can fix this stuff, who can keep it running. They are more skilled than anyone else in their specific expertise. And it's amazing to think that this sleepy little town has some of the most skilled radio astronomy technicians in the world. So our next question is from Samuel, who wanted to know how I feel about the tension between the kind of pure science done at Green Bank and the rush to send technology into the market and just make money off of it, and how that might affect us and the way we see ourselves in the universe in the next century. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that pure science has never really been entirely pure. Star Trek is a TV show that inspired a lot of scientists to become scientists, including myself. And if you look at the Enterprise in Star Trek, it did have a scientific mission to seek out new life and new civilizations. But it was also a battleship. It was capable of combat, and that dual mission is built into the ideal world of Star Trek. We have that same tension today. Lots of scientists would love to just do pure research, but that has to be funded. We have to have money for it. And that means either it has to be funded by the federal government through tax money, or it has to be funded by wealthy philanthropists. And at Green Bank, that's exactly what's happened. Part of the money for Green Bank comes from a wealthy billionaire who wants to look for alien civilizations, and part of it comes from the federal government and tax money to support the general research of radio astronomy. That, I don't think, is going to go away. We have to have a way to balance the two between having a practical use and having a social desire. But I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that the choice of where we balance that is really up to us. We as a society can decide that we want to spend tax money on research. We want to do pure research and support it. Or we can leave it to the wealthy billionaires to support what they want. The power really is ours, and how we decide to balance that will affect how we see ourselves in the future. Chris Madden wanted to know, for people who are aspiring to learn more, what type of books would I suggest for good further reading? That is a great question. It's also really kind of a hard question. The type of book you might like really depends upon what writing style you prefer and also what your technical background level is. Personally, I don't read a lot of popular books. I read a lot of research articles because that's my research field. But I think if you are looking for books, there are a couple of ways that you can find them. One, I would say, is go to your local library and talk to your librarians. They'll have a lot of suggestions for various books that are out there that they have. But another one is to look at various blog writers in science. A lot of major websites like the New York Times, Scientific American, and Forbes have regular blog writers that write about various topics in science. And if you find a blog author that you like, check out to see if they have any books. Many of them do, and if you like their blog, you'll probably like their book. In my particular field, a couple of authors that I like for astronomy, I like Ethan Siegel, who is very quirky and informative in how he presents things. And in physics, there's Chad Orzel, who puts a fun spin on complex physics topics. And I like them both because they have a fun approach to science, and that's really how it should be. Science is a lot of fun. So Chris Olenek had a question saying, we've been using rocket technology for 50 years. Do I think that NASA or somebody has some top secret advanced technology that nobody knows about and they're just not telling? The short answer to that is no, because scientists can't keep secrets. We just can't. You know, you go to the pub and 2 beers in and someone's going to talk. A good example is a couple of years ago, there was a discovery of gravitational waves, which was a huge revolutionary discovery in science, and they wanted to keep the research secret until it was published in Nature. But as soon as that research was done, it started getting talked about. By the time the article came out in Nature, everyone in the field had been talking about it for weeks. This was not a secret in any way at all. And even commercial ventures like Apple, when they come out with some radical, fun new technology, it eventually comes out. People eventually talk about it. There is some secret technology, but it's boring. Here's a detector that detects things 100 times more sensitive than what's available commercially. But nobody cares about that, so we don't talk about it much. Anything cool like UFO technology, I guarantee you we're going to talk about it. So the next question is from Benjamin, who wanted to know, what advice would I give a young scientist who wants to have a career in big science? I think the biggest point of advice I would give is to stay curious. If you are curious about the world around you, no matter what your interests are, you are approaching the world like a scientist. The other thing I would say is that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. A lot of people think that scientists are all super smart. Some of them are, but most of us aren't. There are scientists who struggle to do mathematics or struggle to write well. They struggled in their courses, and every type of challenge you have, there are scientists that fit that. It's that they're curious. It's that they're willing to work hard to be a scientist. The other thing I would keep in mind is that there are lots of ways to contribute to big science. If you don't want to do all the math, you can put aside your calculator and put on your hard hat. You can be a welder. You can be an electrical technician. You can work with your hands and still be a scientist and work at big science. And that's the most important thing. No matter what your interests are, and no matter what your skills are, if you're curious and you're willing to work hard, you can participate in big science.